Okay, this is going to be a quick review of how waterproof the Nemo Hornet two-person tent is, 2019 version of it. I'm out here at Starved Rock State Park in Utica, Illinois, and we had a really bad thunderstorm last night. And before that, it rained, a moderate rain for about 3 hours, and then it stopped for 2 hours, and then a really heavy thunderstorm rolled in, and it was a great test of how waterproof this tent is. And the short of it is, it performed well. There was no water leakage inside the tent. There was a little water that I dragged in myself just because I was kind of panicking. I'm a beginner camper, and I freaked out when I saw the lightning, so I got out in the middle of the rain to go sit in my car for a bit, and doing that allowed some water in. But yeah, in terms of how bad it can rain, how hard it can rain, the amount of water that was dumped, at least for 3 hours, it was as hard as it gets. And the only thing, there wasn't a lot of wind last night, but again, and we're going to take a look inside here. The tent, but there was no leakage inside. There was no, you can even see it was raining so hard that the sides of my tent have been splattered with mud simply from the rain hitting the ground so hard and splattering up. And this is the part of the tent a lot of people get really worried about, because the rain fly here is not does not extend down to the ground here. This is cut out, but you know what, no water leaked through that last night, and it was hitting that part of the tent pretty hard. I did make a mistake. I had a ground sheet that I bought, which was got off Amazon, but it's way too big for this tent, and I even kind of knew it, that it was too big and that I shouldn't use it in a rainstorm, but I just kind of forgot about it and used it. And it would, right now it's tucked underneath the tent, but it was sticking out, water was landing on it, and I could just see it between the tent floor and the ground sheet. The water was pooling, so when I was inside the tent, I could just see like this pool of water that wasn't going anywhere gathered underneath my tent. Pretty amazing that no water came up through the floor, because that is one way I've read that a lot of tents, you know, if you don't have drainage underneath the tent, if the ground is not soaking up the water, eventually that water is going to come up through the floor of the tent. So when that started happening, I just tucked the rain fly underneath the tent to stop the water from pooling up. All right, let's take a look inside here. So yeah, it was muddy and miserable conditions last night, and still is kind of miserable this morning. But so you can kind of see that this is all the mud on the outside of the tent. But the only this is where I got out. So there is water over here in the corner, but this is from where I got out last night as I was panicking as the lightning was crashing down. And I got outside at this door, and the water came dripping down from just the fly and things. But the floor is dry here. You can see that the water underneath it, that's what these dark spots are, is like the water underneath the tent. So that it's wet underneath it, but this floor is dry right here. And this is dry. Now, I should qualify that it's, you know, when I woke up this morning, the walls of the tent do get, you know, slightly damp if you touch them from condensation and such. But in terms of, you know, did my sleeping bag get wet? I know, is the bottom of this sleeping pad wet? No, it's not. It's dry. You know, there's a general sense of humid and dampness to everything when it's this bad of a storm, but again, everything was dry. This tent performed admirably. I would trust this tent. See, that's why I kind of panicked and got out and went to my car, is because I had read some reviews that say this tent leaks. But I trust this tent now. So next time I won't get out of the car, or out of the tent, and go sleep in my car for a bit. I wished I had stayed in my tent, because I tried to sleep in my car and I was just miserable in there. And luckily the storm died down briefly, and I was like, this is awful, I'm gonna go try the tent again. And I saw that it was still dry inside the tent, and I crawled inside and went to sleep. Had a good night's sleep in here, stayed dry. So anyways, figured I'd just give her a review here of someone who is actually just in a big rainstorm. I might even have some footage here at the end of me babbling inside the tent at the middle of the night, describing the storm. But that's it. That's a look at the Nemo Hornet 2019 version of the 2-person Hornet tent. Okay, YouTube. Right, this is an incredibly strong rainstorm I'm in right now. I'm in the Nemo Hornet 2-person tent in a huge storm right now. It's just starting. It's been raining all day, so everything's been saturated already. So, you want to fucking test.